Good afternoon, guys. I think it was, what was it, yesterday or 2 days ago we talked. So had a chance to talk to the Big Ten Network, so I can't imagine what questions I'm going to be asked today. But, we started off well on Saturday, Sunday, and then first day of shells today, so thought it was a good practice. Sort of picked up where we left off a little bit. A lot of guys working. You see good things out there. You see things that need to be corrected. But our goals are all in sight. I think the most exciting thing about every college football camp right now is it sort of starts over, and that's the thing I said at the Big Ten meetings as well. You have a starting point. Where you go from here will be determined by a lot of different things, by injuries, by how you play with confidence, by how you play under pressure. 2016 looks to be an exciting year, and we'll look to go back to back, as we said, and take it from there. So I'll just take some questions, and we'll go from there. I don't think we need 30 minutes, but I'm here for 30.
Mark, after the spring, several of your players talked about Tyler O'Connor's confidence. And I'm just curious about, from your standpoint, because he's been here so long in his fifth year, what is it about his confidence that seems to have really established himself with his teammates, please?
Well, I think, first of all, when you're a quarterback, especially with the amount of success that our quarterbacks have had in high school as they've come through and then been in the program, but especially as they come through most of their life, they develop leadership skills. And Tyler O'Connor's a good leader. He always has been. He's taken that aspect of our program, and really it doesn't start now. It sort of started in February. He was in the quarterback competition in 2013, so he had his opportunities and he had his time sort of to step out there a little bit. So he's not a guy that all of a sudden is just here. He's played. And he's been heavily involved in our offense. So I think he's done that. He's done a nice job with that. But, as I've said before, we're going to allow things to progress naturally with that position. But, he's our leader right now, our headline guy at the quarterback position. But we're going to play it out.
Mark, over here. In some ways, does O'Connor kind of epitomize what you've tried to establish with this program in 10 years, in that when he didn't win the quarterback job 3 years ago, he could have transferred,
sure,
set out a year and got 2 more years of starting, but he stuck around. He stayed, and if he gets the starting job, he can only have it for 1 year.
Yeah, we've really been fortunate with our quarterback situation. We've not had many guys transfer. We had the one episode when Nick Foles left when Keith Nichol was coming. But other than that, our guys have really stayed true to stay in the course, and Tyler's a great example of that. And, look forward to him for that paying off for him. But again, you have to make plays on the field, but he does epitomize, I think, a little bit of what we're about. He's a hard-working guy. He's done a nice job with the press, I think. Our players have respect for him. He's got toughness. He can run with the football. He's a big physical guy, and, I think he's got a bright future for us.
In the frontier, right, Coach? When you walk through the building, when we were just eating lunch, there are pictures of rings. There are pictures of trophies. They just announced it's your 10th year. We see that. We know that. How much different is it recruiting kids when you're pitching rings and trophies and proof now than it was back when you started?
Well, it's pretty much like I said. We can sell results. We really can. We can sit there and say, this is what we've done. These are the things that you can look forward to if you come to school at Michigan State. And there's opportunities for you. We play young guys. We play old guys. We play guys in between. So everybody gets an equal opportunity with that, and we're going to play our best players. So that's really the difference there. Early on in the process, that was not the case. But now it seems like that's what we sell. And I think our coaches have great relationships with the guys we recruit, and I think that's because we have great relationships with our current players.
Mark, when you think about 10 of these introductory conferences in your first weeks of practice, what's distinctive about this? What
the
about
10th? You mean this season? I guess 10 seems like a long time, I guess, but at the other end of the spectrum, you're always starting over. You're sort of fresh. You've got new players that are coming, and it sort of keeps you moving forward. There's always excitement in college football. That's the nature of it. I think being an NFL coach for 10 years is probably would seem a little bit longer than maybe being a college coach for 10 years, just because at one place, just because there's always a newness to the program. We've got new facilities, we've got new players. There's a little bit of, we've had some new coaches, not many, but there's always a little bit of something in the program that's stepping forward. As far as for myself, again, I just wind them up and go again.
I was thinking in terms of the team that you're greeting this year. And
football team?
Yeah.
Got a lot of players back who started last year. I think 31 players plus probably back from a team that was 12-2. We lost some very good players. It's going to be exciting to watch some of our red-shirted freshman guys and our true freshman guys make their statements, because there's opportunity there. And, so it should be exciting. But I'm looking forward to watching our guys. We have a championship dreams here. We've dreamed big, and that's the way it'll always be here. So we'll have our opportunities.
Mark, you have a very unique situation with your tailbacks where you have three guys who could possibly start for you. This year, are you hoping that somebody rises to the top, or will it be kind of a tailback by committee again?
No, I really like the fact that we have three, because if a guy gets dinged up, there's somebody else. But we've got three great players there, and really Delton Williams has come back now. He missed some time last year, so he's come back as a fullback, tailback type guy. So he's the fourth. Nick Tompkins is the fifth. But those top three guys, they can all, they're all capable of carrying the ball 30 times a game and being the feature back. So that's a good problem to have if you're the coach. I know that it, gets a little bit, everybody wants to play, but, we've done a good job, I think, trying to work everybody in there, and then the go-to guy becomes the guy with the hot hand. And I think we've had each of those guys be that hot guy. If you look back, Madre was that guy in the Oregon game. Gerald was, I'm just picking out a couple games. Gerald was that guy in the Ohio State game, and LJ was that guy in the Iowa game. So they've all had their moments. They're all good players. They all run with authority. They all pass, protect, and block well, and are really complete football players.
Mark, kind of looking back over the 10 years, like when you accepted the job, none of these things, the amenities that are here were here. The trophies weren't here. When you look, have you been able to kind of process what the 10 years have been like for you when you're trying to move forward, or is it something that you have to wait until later?
I think you wait till later. I think we're always a work in progress here. We're always going to try and do something else. We've got a big renovation, $1 million+ renovation with our weight room. The weight room is already incredible. You guys have seen it, but we've got that going on, and there's always going to be something we're going to try and establish here physically in our physical plan, and there's always going to be something else we need to shoot for in terms of what we have to do with our football team as well. I just think that's human nature. You're always going to try and go a little bit farther. We've had success here. We can sell that, as I said earlier. But with that being said, I just think that you need to always aspire to be something a little bit better or go a little bit farther. I think that's the way we need to be built here.
Mark, you mentioned the depth that this year's team could have. Last year, due to injuries, you played a lot of guys in the secondary, O-line, and at linebacker. Because of that, is this one of the more experienced units that you'll have?
Yeah, I think it is. On the defensive side of the ball, we started 7 different players. I think we go pretty deep at safety. At corner, we've moved some guys around a little bit, but Deontay Copeland's back, so that's a big plus. Tyson Smith's another year older. Darian Hicks was a guy that was injured last year 3 different times. He's back. He's playing very well. Nicholson, Kari Willis, Grayson Miller, Demetrius Cox, they've all started for us in big games. So that's really just the tip of it. So our linebacker situation is very solid as well. Ed Davis is coming, and we'll get that squared away. So he'll be, I think, my plans are he's going to be a factor here. And so it is, we've got enough good people up front, so we should be good.
Mark, at the top of your depth chart at receiver, you've got a kind of a forgotten man in Manny Medeiros, who was a big-time recruit, had kind of a snake-bitten career. What are you hoping to get out of him this season, and where has his head been throughout these last 4 years as he's gone through this? He's stayed the course. I was talking to our football team. You got to stay healthy in fall camp, especially as a freshman. And if you lose, and I think he got hurt on his second or third day with an ankle.
and he was out for 6 weeks or something like that. So his freshman year it just went bust right there, because if you can't stay healthy as a freshman, you can't learn, and then the next step is very difficult to go. So he's gotten hurt a little bit. He's played behind some very talented players. He made some plays last year. He does have great ability. He's a big guy. He's a physical guy. He's extremely fast. And he's done a nice job catching the ball down the field in different areas. So right now he's our starter. And I think he'll have a great year. We've seen that happen with Benny Fowler. I think he's very comparable to Benny Fowler in a lot of ways. Speed, size, and really what he's been able to accomplish here. Benny had a huge senior year, but had been hurt a couple times. And Monty's had that issue early in his career as well. I think maybe 2 different times.
Mark, Tom Izzo's talking a lot over the years about trying to maintain once you've been there at the top of the mountain. I'm guessing he's talked to you about that. Was it tougher in the mid-2000s to build to this, or has it been tougher the last 4 years in keeping it there and probably dealing more with the spotlight and the media than you care to?
I think they're both difficult. I don't know which one's easier, to be honest with you. I think that you need to be consistent. What we want to do is win a championship, and then the next thing we want to do is prove ourselves to be consistent winners. And I think we're doing that. But there's always that next step. We've done it the last 3 years, certainly. You could make a case that we've done it for 9 years. If we've won 87 games in 9 years, do the math. But I think you always start over. Again, that's what's so special about starting every season about August. You start with your dreams, new people. You tweak things, you critique things. You have new opponents on your schedule. You have opponents on your schedule with differences as well. So I think it all changes, and I think you just have an opportunity to start fresh. But it's going to always be the competition that we play is always going to be difficult. I mean, there are good football teams that we play. Winning by 10 points is not they won by a lot. That's a close game where I sit. So competition is tough. The East Division is very tough. A lot of good football teams. It's an extremely well-coached league across the board. And you see a lot of people with dreams as well.
Mark, you had some losses on defense, but some key players back, especially with the linebacking core, but obviously some holes to fill in the defensive line. Can this defense be as good as last year? Do you think you have the pieces in place, the players in place to be as good as last year?
I think we have the players in place to be as good or better than last year. Yeah, I do. We've got some guys that are younger players that need to fill in. Our freshman class, defensive line wise, is got to learn. But you can see they're very unique players with certain skill sets. But after one day of shells, it's a little bit too difficult to say, okay, who's going to help us, who's not going to help us at this point in time. That's new. But I do think our linebacker group and our secondary group has experience, and experience is not just playing in one game; it's being able to adjust from game to game to game. And I think that we're able to do that. They have a lot of playing time and minutes behind them. And that should come into play in the process here.
Mark, over here. When you have a player like Malik who's getting so much national attention, is that a conversation you need to have, how to handle the attention, because it's a changing role and not just on the field?
Yeah, I think with success comes even more responsibility, and when it's pointed out to you that you're of that vein, that ability, then you've got to play to that ability. And that's a challenge that everybody hopes to have in their football career. You hope to get to that point where you need to play like a first-team All-American, and he can and he should, and I believe he will. But everybody has different aspects of their game that they need to take it and step forward. And I've always just tried to say, hey, everybody here needs to overachieve, regardless of their level of ability. And if they can do that, then really great things are possible. Yeah, I have. I've seen him grow. He's only his third year, going into his third year, and a guy with a lot of ability and a guy with a lot of attention, national attention. So it's tough to manage all that, but I've seen him grow.
Mark, Jalen Watts-Jackson, what are your expectations for him this year, and how much progress has he made coming back from missing the time?
Jalen's a very good athlete. He's out there. He's an explosive player, and he's working at safety, and he's a guy that obviously he had the huge play last year, which, catapulted him to, folklore attention. Okay, but I think he's a very good football player. Great ball skills. He can tackle. He's tough. He's a redshirt sophomore, so I think he has a bright future. Got to stay healthy like everybody as you go through this. But thus far, there's no indication of his hip being a problem whatsoever. He's moving really well.
A lot of talk about injuries so far. You mentioned having a bunch of them, string of them last year. Did you guys look at that at all and adjust anything you're doing, or was that just sort of a string of bad luck? Yeah.
No, we do what we do. I think you got to play the game of football in camps some to get better and be ready to play in the fall. You just can't line up and say, well, we've gone, thud and never tackled and never did these things. You have to play, but we try and do it in a controlled environment. Try. But, on the first day of shells or the first day of pads, everybody wants to hit. I mean, that's what players want to do. They want to get after each other. So we try and take the edge off of each other a little bit, off of that aspect. But it sort of is what it is. It's always been that way, and so we're going to play hard.
And with this being year 10 for you, are you feeling good and refreshed and good for another 10 years or so?
Another 10? Another 10? I don't know about 10, but I got something left in me.
Mark, Wojo kind of alluded to the defensive line having some gaps. You got 6 new guys really there with the 4 incoming freshmen and 2 transfers. What have you seen, I guess, in the first few days from them, and what kind of expectations do you have? Because that's obviously a tough position to learn, and one that you saw a couple years ago that can make an impact when Ron came here.
Mm-hmm. What we try and do is we try and put our players in chaotic situations as much as we can. We put them in controlled environments and then take them and put them in areas of chaos where they have to get lined up, they have to play fast, they have to adjust, they have to make the call changes and things of that nature. So early on in the process, it sort of starts to overwhelm guys a little bit. So we need to understand that as we go through it. But our linebackers in our secondary are in on that too, and they're more experienced. So we need, it's still out a little bit on who would help us from a new player, but they have the skill level to be able to play. They have that skill level. Now, what they have to do is be able to be consistent, stay injury-free in fall camp, and then, as I always tell them, the game of football is played with your knees bent, and you got to play fast, and you got to have shock. If you can do those things, you can play, and then you got to know what to do. So, but that's all relative a little bit. So guys can play in and out of there a little bit and get experience. That'll be a positive thing for them. But they're very good players, and it's just a matter of when they hit that moment in time where they accelerate the learning, I guess I'd say.
Mark, what's it been like for the last couple of since you started your camp with the Big Ten Network being here covering green and white days? And I guess is this showing the progress of your program and the maturity of your players that they're able to handle outside people watching them?
Really, I watched them last year, what they did, and I thought they did a great job. I thought it was very well done. So that's why we did it. I think it brought an added element to our camp a little bit. They're in and out. So, for example, they're not here today. So they're in and out I think, 3 different times. But I just think it allows us to it's another step in the process a little bit. Gives us a little bit of exposure for recruits and for our fan base. And it shows inside of Michigan State football a little bit. And I think it shows our personality a little bit. Maybe that's as much as anything. I don't think we're doing anything earth-shattering, but I think it shows our personality as people a little bit and shows how we run our program. So, I thought it would be a good thing to do, and we're going to do it and see how it goes.
Mark, what kind of player can Viante Copeland be, and then what does he maybe bring this year that you were missing last year?
Viante, first of all, has his weight down, so he's 192 pounds. He was a 400-meter champion in the state of Ohio, so he can run. He's a very physical player. He has great ball skills. He's a very confident player. And I think after, going into last year, he was a redshirt freshman. Thought he had a good first game, very good first game, and was on the verge, I think, of being probably one of our more consistent guys. So I think he brings that to the table. He's a very focused guy, and I think you got to be able to play. If you're going to have a good defense, you got to be able to play a corner. In this day and age, you've got to have guys that can play the ball in the deep part of the field and tackle in space and get off blocks and run, and they've got to be able to play under control as well. And I think he's able to do that. So I think he has a great future ahead of him.
Mark, you've talked a lot about in your program players needing to make the most of the opportunities they get. Is part of the fun of coaching seeing who grabs the baton next and keeps this program? I remember when Kirk Cousins left, you were going to fall off the map, and a couple defensive players left. Is this part of the challenge and the fun that you have? Yeah,
I think it is. I think it's a statement for your program that you're here to stay. Again, I'll go back to what you talk about, your culture. Culture is consistency, whether that's winning or losing. It's doing something over and over. So right now we have a culture of winning. We need to continue that. I think you're exactly right. We have certain players. I mean, Donnie Corley is an explosive player that he's a true freshman, but he's been here for a semester. But you can see him making plays out there, and he fits in with our guys that have been here. You've got some other young players that are exciting to watch that need to learn what to do, but you can see that they have great talent. So we need to work those guys. You have the tailback situation we talked about, quarterbacks, but there's a lot of positions like that. You can almost take every single position and you can say, look at that guy and look what he can do. And his game has either been elevated or he's a brand new guy.
Coach, you talked about Chambers already. Going on top of that, just the young receiver core, you've got guys like Corley and Chambers. Where do they fit into the rotation?
Well, again, it's a little bit too early to tell, but based on the spring, I thought Cam and Donnie did very, very well. They understand the system. Justin Lane and Tristan Jackson comes in. They've been exciting to watch as well. But there's a lot of guys. So we're gonna have to wait to see in terms of how things shake out and really get through the next week, which a week seems like a relatively short time, but in fall camp, that's a long time. There's a lot of work to be done. But I think they have the skill set, no question.
Mark, two-part special teams. I'll just ask them separate. Several of the guys talked about Corley's ability in the spring when he had the ball and just elusiveness. Would you consider him, even though he's a true freshman, for a punt returner's job?
Yeah. Everybody out there, if they can catch the ball off punts, off jugs, off punts, they're going to be considered. Yeah, Donnie Corley is an exciting player, and whether it's punts or kickoffs.
One loss that doesn't get a lot of attention is Tabor, obviously, with his ability to snap. And a lot of guys talked about, obviously, with Brad coming in as a scholarship. But Catholish, would you talk about the battle for your long snapper's job?
Yeah, Colin Catholish right now is the guy, and he redshirted last year. He's done a nice job. He's been very consistent. Ryan Amore is in camp as well. Ryan Armour. It might be Amore. Okay, but Ryan Armour's in camp as well. He seems to be doing a nice job as well. So I think that position will be secured. Tabor did an outstanding job for 4 years, but so he's a guy that we got to replace. But again, that's the nature of college football these days.
Mark, it seems pretty natural to look at the middle linebacker position and see a Bulla name there, and we've seen Riley produce a lot. But how much different is he than Max? I mean, I think we kind of assume they're the same, but it seems like their personalities are way different. How does that relate to the other guys on the team? How's he as a leader, those sort of things?
All three of those guys, all three of those Bullers are the same in a lot of ways, but that are also different. And I'm going to need some water. So thought I'd be up here for 10. Okay, no such luck. Thank you. Riley, very excitable guy on the field, fifth-year senior. He's played multiple positions. He played a little tailback for us, if you guys remember. Played outside backer some. And, has great leadership skills. Byron right now is a guy that redshirt freshman, but you can see, I think he's one of our most improved players. I thought he had a great spring. He's a very solid football player. So is he number 2 or is he number 3 right now? I can't say that, but, he's going to play football for us. And, again, like with all the Bullas, playing here at Michigan State is very important to them.
Coach, you mentioned culture all the time. How much do you get the sense that this team, with some of the guys that you lost, with Cook and Calhoun and Conklin and those guys, how much do you get the sense that this year's team wants to make sure that they're not the ones to see the culture shift?
I think that's pretty common with every football team when it gets to be their time and it's their senior class. There are expectations that go with that, and so the challenge is if you're a senior to have your best career year as a Spartan. That's what we've been able to do. Really, each senior class has risen the bar in terms of how many games that senior class has won. This last year's team has won the most. But even going back to Kirk Cousins' senior season, winning his team in Michigan State history, and then the 13 team, then the 14, then the 15. So those are positives for us. But I think that there is pressure there. That's good. Want them to have pressure. Want them to take ownership. And I think when you empower people and they take ownership, you get their best effort. And at the end of the day, that's all I ask for is their best effort. If it's not good enough, we deal with it.
Coach, going back to the running backs real quick, what does Gerald Holmes have that may be able to help him separate himself if one guy does become the guy? Why would it be him? What kind of skills does he have to do that?
They're all really different type of tailbacks. I think that's the case. Madry's a little bit more of a slasher. LJ is a quick cut guy, quick cut vertical guy. Gerald is he runs his feet on contact. And he's got good vision and he can run away from you and all that kind of stuff. But he will run his feet on contact, and he's gotten great yards after contact for us. And if you say I really can't say what's going to separate guys. It might be their pass protection. It might be how they catch the ball out of the backfield. It might be how they're playing that particular game. But they're all considered starters. We've got all three of them back. And collectively, as a group, it may be as deep as there is in the country.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank you, guys.